Hey everyone, Tactics here with another first look at a brand new dungeon on the Dragonflight Alpha Ruby Life Pools. Like my other videos in this series, I'm just going to be kind of giving a general overview of this dungeon, briefly talking about trash, layout of the dungeon, the bosses, and kind of giving my overall thoughts on it. And this is a good one, definitely my favorite so far. So let's just jump right into the dungeon itself. Again, this was on heroic difficulty as that's the only one available, and this isn't going to be an in-depth guide. That'll come closer to release when we actually have tested mythic and stuff like that. So 3 bosses, 3 boss dungeon. Overall, probably the shortest, going to be much shorter than the previous 2 we looked at, Naltheris and Alderman. And it's kind of a mix. So at the beginning of the dungeon, it's linear. It's basically a straight line to the first boss. Once you kill that first boss, you kind of come up into this circular area. You get the second boss, and then straight into the third boss after that. There's a quite fair number of casters, both in the beginning of this dungeon. I think at the beginning is definitely a higher density of casters, but they're throughout the dungeon a fair bit. There's a little mini boss pack at the beginning, and there's a bunch of knockbacks at the beginning as well, which can be a little bit annoying because there's these whelp eggs surrounding you basically, and if you touch them, it spawns dragon whelplings, which can be bad. And of course the packs are also in fairly close proximity in this beginning part, so getting knocked into another pack is pretty easy to do. If you get into the trash before the second boss, this is kind of like a Shard of Halkia situation, so the first boss of Halls of Atonement, where you have to basically kill these 4 big fire guys, and doing that will let you then engage the boss. These guys, maybe not the most friendly to melee. They'll blow up on death in 20 yards, and you have a decent amount of time to run out at least, but it's definitely a little bit spooky. The circle you're running in here to clear all these guys out is also fairly wide. There's some extra count on the edges that you can pull in. You can fairly easily maneuver your way and adjust your count and pack size as you see fit in this area, so I am a big fan. And as I previously mentioned, there's actually no trash at all between the second and third boss. It's just a straight shot, so you want to make sure you get all your count finished up in this circular area. When it comes to the bosses themselves, 3, like I mentioned, the first one is Meldrussa Chillworn. As the name implies, this is kind of an ice-based boss. And basically all of her abilities will put a stacking debuff on players that are hit, and if you ever reach 5 stacks, you will freeze, basically kind of like the third boss in Plaguefall with the spider wrap. You just get frozen in ice, and your team has to break you out. In terms of what those abilities are, the big one is just a massive circle that goes on one player, and when that expires, it explodes into a giant ice tornado, and it pulls everyone towards it and shoots out swirlies you have to dodge at the same time. It's cool looking, it's fun, I really enjoy it. Boss also has a cone attack, and also will occasionally just summon a bunch of whelps from the side of the room, and these whelps will actually also apply stacks to the people they hit, so you're going to want to watch out your tank here, and make sure they don't get frozen. AoE in the middle of a boss fight, DPS players always happy with that. Stack that up on the boss, nuke it all down. And the only other ability this boss has is a channel ability, which will just pulse party damage and of course stacks to everyone, and you just want to interrupt that ASAP. You'll fly up here, you'll clear all that trash before the second boss, and then we get to Kokia Blazehoof themselves. Again, name implies it, fire related. So basically at 100 energy, they'll summon a ad that's very similar to the big ad that you had to kill 4 of to activate the boss. You basically just need to pull boss over to it, cleave it down, keep it kicked, and then when it actually dies, it'll just do this cast and explode within 20 yards. So obviously you don't want to be in that. The boss will also just shoot these molten boulders at random players. They like travel for 40 yards and they'll explode in a 12-yard radius, so you want to watch out for that. They'll stun you and deal a ton of damage if you get hit, so be careful. And the tank buster here is just kind of a physical hit that has a stacking bleed attached to it, so hey, evoker bleed cleanse, gonna be nice in this dungeon for sure. Then you make your way over to the final boss of the instance, which is Kyraka and Urquhart Stormvane. So actually 2 bosses together. So you've got the Storm guy and you've got a Fire Dragon. Initially, it's mostly like Urquhart, and the dragon's kind of flying around doing all dragon stuff all over the place. Fire. Don't touch the fire. In terms of what the Storm guy does, basically he has a tank hit, he has a party hit, And then he has winds, which will like push players around the platform, and it'll also move kind of the fire puddles that are spawned by the dragon around the platform. And basically those fire puddles, they'll be spawned underneath players, 1 puddle per second of the debuff on them, and this can deny a ton of space. This platform is huge, by the way, and this is going to be a very, very chaotic fight for sure. Because of the knockback, because of all the puddles, because players are moving around, because the dragon has 2 different types of frontals, right? One seems to be applied at the tank, one seems to be aimed at a random player, so you got to watch out. You avoid the puddles, don't get knocked off the edge. The puddles are moving as well with the wind. It's crazy. It looks like a lot of fun. And honestly, I think if we're comparing this dungeon to Alderman and to Neltheris, this one is for sure my favorite. It's going to be the fastest. The bosses seem really cool. The trash layout I actually rather enjoy. I'm interested to see when count for these dungeons actually come out when they're on Mythic Plus, to see kind of how much trash in that second area you need to clear to get to full count. How much can you skip in that initial area? Because there's some fairly high density mob packs in that initial area, but again, they're not really. They definitely seem like you'd rather get your count from the mobs upstairs before the second boss. So I really am excited to kind of play around with that. And on top of that, 3 boss dungeon. Everyone loves a 3 boss dungeon. As always though, guys, I would love to know your opinion on this dungeon. How's it look to you? What are you excited for? What are you a little bit worried about? Leave a comment down below, or come stop by my Twitch channel where I do all this alpha stuff. I do high Mythic Plus keys, Mythic rating, all from a tank POV. Come stop by at Tactics on Twitch, and I'll do my best to answer. That does wrap up this video, guys. A nice quick one. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.